All right, I'm going to go over something today that has become quite noticed in the Glowforge community, and that's the issue of when you're running your laser, the head moves, everything's functioning, but the laser does not actually fire. So there's a couple things that cause this. One is actually internally in the power supply, and there's nothing you can do with that except try to buy another one from Glowforge. The most common thing that happens though is the high voltage wire. So there's a red wire that's built into the power supply that runs under the machine, back through the chain guide, under the tube, and then connects to the far side. Now that is high voltage shooting through that. It's 30,000 volts of DC, and that's what powers up the tube and creates the laser beam. So the wire that they use is rated for 40,000 kilovolt, or 40 kilovolts, just 40,000 DC. But the insulation is very flimsy and not great. So we've come to the conclusion, looking at it, that a mix of rubbing or moisture getting on it has caused them to arc and jump out of the insulation and into the grounding of the machine. When that happens, you're done. The machine moves like normal, but you get no laser beam. So there's been I've walked a ton of people through how to repair this, and there's been some kind of videos on how to do it, but today I decided to make a video to make it easier and more comprehensible for people to be able to do it. Now this is a machine that's completely dead. I normally like to do them on any videos on nice clean machines, but today I'm going to use this machine because it is dirty, and more than likely yours isn't going to be clean. Maybe not this bad, but it will give you an idea of what to expect in these situations. Now the first thing you've got to do is remove both the lids on the machine, the left and the right. So there's videos on how to do this. I've made some, and people are still struggling. There's also two types of lids. There's a newer machine that's super easy to get off, and then this machine right here, which is a lot harder. The goal is, first off, you have 3 screws to remove, one here, and one here. And they're T10 Torx screws to get the lid off. Once you get it off, there's also some adhesive right here. You don't have to do anything to that, you can still get it loose. Now, I have learned a trick to get these off that actually is pretty easy. You just need a pry tool, something along the lines of this right here. Something flat, strong, and a little flexible. So to get it off, you see these clips right here are what hold on the side of the lid to the machine. Now the side of the lid, the machine is pretty flexible, and what I have learned to do is with this installed, all the way, lid up, you get your pry tool, and you can put your finger in there and you can feel where the tinfoil tape is. You don't actually have to remove the tinfoil tape. What you'll do is you get your pry tool and you push it in next to the lid and the frame of the machine, the plastic. You push in and you just wiggle up on it a little bit while you push down on it. And it's still a little bit of pain. You can get a flathead screwdriver in afterwards, whatever you want to do. It'll move a little, not a lot. You just see a little bit of a gap. So then you go to the middle where the next piece is, but right here, you'll do the same thing. You wiggle it in there, and you pull up. Now the lid comes up a little bit further. Then you go to the back where the final flip is, and you'll do the same thing. You'll put your pry tool in there, and wiggle, and it'll pop up a little further. Now it can get a little tricky right here where the adhesive is. What you can do is, you can just kind of wiggle up and down with it, and it'll break that adhesive loose, and it comes right off. So we're going to set that aside. We're going to do the same thing on the other side. The screws are already out on this side. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to put it in here. Pull up. Same thing back here, and then same thing in the back. And you can see this one's still got the adhesive, so it's kind of wanting to hold here. So what you do is you'll pull up and wiggle. Now, these machines also, the buttons are, most of them, the plug disconnects right from the bottom of it. This is an older machine, and that is not something I can do, so I actually have to remove this plastic cover to get the button unplugged. Normally you just unplug it there. So this is the next hurdle people run into, and that is removing this red plug right here. You can see the red wire is right behind it. That red wire right here goes under that plug and screws to the laser tube. It's a silicone cap, and most laser companies actually put a silicone sheet all the way on their high voltage wire back to a splice point or the main power supply. They only put it on the cap here just to protect it from arcing at the open point. But to get it off, The side of this machine is very flexible. They didn't use anything there for strengthening. The lid actually fits in these grooves and gives it strength so it doesn't move. So because of that, it's very flexible when you take the lid off. So what you're gonna do to get this thing off is you just grab it, pull back towards the edge of the machine, and wiggle it back and forth. And you just keep moving it back and forth, up and down. You don't want to do it too hard, just slowly go. You can see it's already moving a good bit. And once you get it so far, you can just flex the side of the machine and just pop it off and just move the tube a little bit and it just comes right off. So now you can see right here, there's a T10 screw. You're gonna have to remove that to get the wire loose. Okay, set that aside, you don't want to lose it. Now the wire's loose. Now the next thing is to push it down underneath the coolant line right here. That's a coolant line. You're just going to push it down underneath it to the bottom and pull it out on the other side. So it's on the other side of the tube. Now this other part is very, very important for multiple reasons. One, once you get this thing removed, you're going to want to install it back once you do a patch or inspect it to see what's going on. It's near impossible to get that wire back through there if you don't think ahead. So what I like to do, get a string, you get the wire, and you're going to tie string around the eyelet of the wire. And that just lets you pull it back through once you're done. So got it tight, not gonna pop loose. One thing to keep in mind, these eyelets, they did not solder them. They are just crimped on there and then they have some heat shrink. So you've got to be careful pulling it. If something hangs, stop, reposition. Don't force it. If you force it too hard, you will pull the eyelet off the wire. It can be put back on or a new one, it's not a big deal, but just be aware. Okay, so that's done. We're gonna move to the other side. This is a little tricky. I'll push the tube all the way to the front. And you have to kind of feel under here. The wire is in the very front slot. There's 3 slots under this, basically the entire gantry that the laser tube sets in. There's one closest to the back of the machine. That one has the coolant line that runs to the far side. You've got one in the middle that actually just has these sliding bumpers or cushions for the laser to set on for aligning it. And then you have one in the very to the front of the machine, and that's where your red wire, high voltage wire runs. So what you have to do is just feel under here. And you can feel the bigger hose coming out that is for the coolant. And then you can feel towards the very front, the red wire. So it pulls out fairly easily. You just want to make sure, like I said, that you guide it in on the other side. You don't want it to bind. Okay. You'll just keep pulling it. Kind of pull it straight back. Try not to pull it at an angle. Pull it straight from that guideline. Okay. So now we have the wire out. Now that the wire is out, I'm going to go inside and show you what you're looking for. And this is it. This is what typically happens with these machines. You end up getting a short, and you can see right there where it blew out a good chunk of the wire. Most of them are not this drastic, but this one was pretty bad. So to fix it, or patch it for the time being, and sometimes this lasts for a while, sometimes it does not. You can get some liquid electrical tape and just fill the void, and then get some 1/4-inch double wall heat shrink if possible. Slide it over and cover the area and heat shrink. If you get anything larger than 1/4-inch, or if you try to double it up, it will not go back into that channel that they made for this wire. So keep that in mind whenever you're patching it. If you try to go overboard and just really pile it on there, it will not last. So once it's repaired and patched, you'll get something along the lines of this right here, and then you're ready to reinstall. All right, and here's the fun part, reinstalling it after you've done the patch. So there's a few problems that people run into. One, this metal channel that runs front to back has sharp edges. You've got to make sure that you're feeding the wire in straight. If you're going in crooked and you're trying to pull over here, then the sharp edge tends to grab the rubber insulation of the wire and it won't budge. It can nick the wire, which can cause it to blow out again, or it can pull the eyelet off the wire, which once again, not fun. So the way I like to do it is standing at the front of the machine here. My left hand I grab the wire, and on my right hand I grab the string, and on my left hand I grab the wire. So you'll just kind of pull the wire, make sure you're in the track. You find the track with your left hand, and then as you're getting it in there, finding it, you have to kind of feed it as you go. And you have to be careful. Sometimes it wants to go into the wrong track, the middle one, and it'll only go so far and it bottoms out every single time. So you've got to feel and find it. You can't really see it the way they've designed it. It's not made to be seen. It's made to be basically out of sight, which this machine, the aesthetics were, making it look nice was a big deal for them. So go ahead and get your string in that track, get the wire in that track, and then it's going to go. You want to make sure that you're feeding it in straight, and I like to just go with little movements. Go push with your left hand while you slowly put a little pressure with your right and just let it slide through. I mean, you saw how dirty this machine was. It's still coming through pretty easily. Like I said, the main thing is you don't go overzealous with the repair and put a whole bunch of covering on it. So we're back through to the other side. You'll just cut your string off and put it back on there. 85% of the time, the wire shorts out under the tube, but every now and then it does short out in the plastic guide here or actually underneath the machine. So if you don't see any damage on your red wire, you've got a couple of options. One, you can continue pulling it out through the chain guide to see if you can find damage. If you don't see any there, you can secure the machine on the back side like here, flip it up 90 degrees. There's a metal plate with some Phillips head screws. You can remove those and pull the red wire out there. I have had them short there, not normally. The one that I did have short there was because the lady was spraying cleaner on the fan and turning it on cleaning mode, which is recommended by Glowforge. That liquid's got to go somewhere, so it actually drained down into there and made a gunk where the cable was, and that acted like a lightning rod, allowing the high voltage to jump out of the insulation and into the metal frame. So it was patched, it's still running. That patch is not always a permanent repair. Sometimes it works great. Other people, the moment they reinstall it, it blows again. If that happens, it's done. You've got to either do a splice, which I'm gonna do a kit for that and show a video on how to do that the safest, most secure way later. Or you can put it all back together and contact Glowforge and tell them what's going on. You can try to buy a power supply from them. Some people have had success. It's been very hit or miss and very inconsistent on the pricing and availability. Once you get it, a lot of times they also tell you that you're modifying your machine, and if you buy the power supply and install it, you're no longer available to get a refurbished machine from them anymore, because they consider your machine modified because you replaced a Glowforge part with another Glowforge part. Not getting into it. Anyways, so that's the high voltage short and what you can do. Now, as far as preventative goes, there is a kit on Etsy that has a fiberglass sheath. You have to do all of this job, install the sheath and reinstall it. It is a pain, but it will protect it. The number one thing though is make sure that if you're letting your machine sit overnight, you do not leave it vented outside. If you don't have a flap on your outside window, pull the vent inside and shut your window. Don't leave it, because the moisture, we're in South Alabama, humidity is terrible here in the summertime. It's going to get back into your machine, and if it does, it can mess with the electronics in your machine, or it can cause that red wire to short. So make sure that you don't leave it vented, especially if you're in high humidity areas. Next, if you clean this tube, which I know a lot of people love these tubes to look really nice, it's not necessary really. I normally just clean the exposed part. I don't try to clean underneath it because it's a lot of work and doesn't last. But if you do, some people are prone to just spraying the tube glass cleaner and letting it run all down it. Well, that glass cleaner's got to go somewhere, and it's going to drip down and it's going to get in the channel where that high voltage wire is. So now you've got buildup or liquid still on that wire, which once again causes the short. That's why a lot of people are like, well, I cleaned my machine and now I have this issue where the laser's moving and engraving, but it's not firing. A lot of times that's why. And you can see where it's shorted, it arcs and it leaves a burn mark on the metal. So that's how you do the repair, and a few things to do to help prevent it from happening. If you have any questions, you can either go to the Friendliest Glowforge group on Facebook and post there. There's a couple of us there that are helping and doing our best to keep people running. You can message me through here on YouTube as well. Well, thanks for watching.